Good evening, everybody. David Burns with you today. Thanks for joining me for my live stream. I'm excited about having all of you here with me for another great hour of talking about bees and all the other good stuff that we can come up to talk with. Got a great show planned for you tonight. Great activities going on, talking about what's going on with all of our beehives right now. And other than the far north part of the United States, for those of you that live here in the U.S., people south are experiencing nice weather and some swarms and raising queens and all. Everybody else up here where I'm at, cold again, snow again. So it's a good time to talk about some things that happen in the spring to our honeybees, like swarming and how to control those swarms, how to make splits, how to avoid our bees flying away and not making a honey crop for us. So we're going to talk about that tonight. We've got a special guest lined up for us, and good to see all of you guys in the chat. Thanks for being here with us. And I wanted to give a shout out before we get started to a lot of people that have been donating to the live stream here. And I really do appreciate that. They're giving super thanks or super chats, stickers, and so on. And I just want to encourage you to know that I'm using your donations to continue these live streams. It takes effort, camera equipment, but I'm also using it to make more experiments and to purchase items that you guys want me to review and everything. So I just want to give a big shout out to those of you that have been leaving some donations in my past 3 live streams. I really appreciate that so much. I don't take that very lightly. It's humbling to see you help me out. And I'm excited about it because I do enjoy doing a lot of special activities, special review of products. Who knows? Maybe one day I will even buy a flow hive and try a flow hive out. That'd be fun and see how that goes. I could does a flow hive really work as well as I think it does, or it should, or, who knows? But I just want to give a shout out and thank you very much. I'm going to bring in my special friend, my special guest that I've asked to be on our live stream tonight. He's an outstanding individual as far as beekeeping, as far as a person. We have spent a lot of time together, and he is awesome about bees and understanding bees. He's my go-to person that I go to every time I have a bee question. So I'm going to welcome to the live stream tonight Dr. John Zivishlock. Hello, John.
Hey, good evening, David.
And thanks, Castle Hive, for the $10. Looks like he started a flow hive fund. I'm going to get stuck having to run a flow hive, John. He's going to get the crowd to donate money. I priced it out. John, how much do you think it would cost me to buy a flow hive and have it sent to my house? 7-frame flow hive with a stand. What do you think?
$800.
Oh my gosh. Nope. Higher.
$1,200.
Yes.
Really?
Oh, it's $1,100 and something dollars.
Is that straight from Australia? Not from a domestic dealer?
I just went on their website and said, hey, what would it cost if I had one shipped to me? And it was $1,193 or something. Pretty pricey, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, tell you what, David, I will hand carve you a beehive grown from native hardwood timber for that much money.
Hand carved the frames even?
Sure. For you, for $1,200, I'd take it on.
Oh, that's kind of you. Well, John, tell everybody what you do. What are your credentials?
Well, I am a professor of apiculture for the University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture. I work with the Cooperative Extension Office, so I'm kind of the Arkansas honeybee specialist for extension. I've been keeping bees now for, well over 20 years. I'd have to stop and figure it out. My wife and I, our family, we have a little honey farm here in Little Rock, and so we make honey and we make products out of beeswax and stuff like that. You and I met at the Eastern Apicultural Society meeting one year. That was in 2009, I believe.
Yep, that's correct.
We were studying cramming for the Master Beekeeper exams. We met in a laboratory looking at nosema spores under a microscope, I think.
Yep, I remember that. We were in a little pod together, like 4 of us.
Yeah, and we've been fast friends ever since.
We have been. It's really interesting. You wouldn't think that such a friendship would develop just by meeting somebody, because we both meet a lot of people at different conferences, but man, we really hit it off and enjoyed each other's company and stayed in contact. And I've been to your house, you've been to my house.
I remember the first time I met your wife, Sherry, she said, "I'm so glad the two of you got together. Now David has someone besides me to talk about bees with."
Yeah, that's so true. And we do talk about bees a lot, don't we? Wow.
We do. Yeah, we're both kind of fond of them.
Oh, yeah. I lost John. There he is.
So
We have spent a lot of time talking about bees. We work together in many kind of bee operations. We've had a lot of experiences with the Master Beekeeping program at Eastern Apicultural Society, with that program. And you're just a fun guy to hang out with. We've traveled together, spoken at places together, and it looks like we're going to be speaking together maybe in Nevada at their state conference in 2024. That'd be exciting.
Yeah.
They have no idea what they're getting themselves into by bringing you and me together.
Don't tell them. Don't give them any hints. It needs to be a surprise.
Just to give everybody an idea before we start talking bees, John and I were at this conference. I won't say where, but we were at a conference in the Northeast. So, it wasn't Hive Life or anything like that. We were both there, but we were in a conference in the Northeast somewhere. I won't name the state. And they had a conference where people they had their honey they could bring and have their honey judged, or wax combs judged, or mead. And for those of you that don't know what mead is, it's an alcoholic beverage made out of honey. And so this mead was being tasted and sampled, and somebody won, first place, blue ribbon, second place, third place, so on. So John and I are just milling around the conference, walking around, having a good time.
Right. Yeah, and we were checking out all of the different prize-winning items of the honey and the candles and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
I remember. I think I know what you're gonna talk about.
Where I'm going with this. So there's a guy standing there by all the winners of the honey and the mead, and they had their bottles all sitting there, and we were just standing there kind of, oh, look at that person went first place. There was a guy who said, "Hey, do you guys want to?"
Yeah, there was a couple of guys. They came up and they brought a package of cups and a corkscrew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And asked us if we wanted to sample the winning blue ribbon mead, right?
Yeah, he insinuated that it was his bottle.
Right, he did.
He had produced it.
Right.
And he popped a cork on it and he served it up to several people. It wasn't just you and me. There were several people around.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. And we all, we acted like we knew what we were talking about. We sniffed the bouquet. We drank some. And then that guy got a funny look on his face, and he looked at his friends and said, "I guess it's time to go." And he took off running down the hall.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he had anything to do with the conference.
And you and I were just standing there holding a cup, and we looked at each other and we thought, we better get going too. I don't have any idea who that guy was.
Yeah, that was really a weird feeling. We really fell for whatever scheme he was doing. It was like, wow.
Yeah, that was some good mead, though.
That was a good mead. Yeah, it should have won first place, right?
Well, I didn't taste the other ones.
Yeah.
The person whose bottle it is probably watching you right now. He's going to track it down.
Yeah. We do stuff like that. It's been fun. It was.
Well, we don't do stuff like that very often.
No. But I remember a fun time that I had with you and Steve Rapaski. We were hanging out together at a similar, maybe, I don't think it was that conference, could have been, but remember we decided we would go up and there was a guy doing some special work on honey, sifting it through filters to find the pollen in it and everything. And we decided to take your honey up there and run it through all his processes and look at it under a microscope.
That's right. Yeah. He showed us how to extract pollen grains from the.
Yeah, he was real helpful. He and his wife were there. I don't remember his name, but that was a fun activity that we learned a lot about what pollen grains looked like, how much pollen was in honey, and he determined something about your honey. What was it?
Well, I was curious what the floral sources were. That was that interesting honey. It tasted like peaches.
Yeah.
And I had asked a number of people to help me identify what the nectar source could be, and everybody had a different opinion. So he was there doing that lab, and we took it to him, and his conclusion was, "Wow, there's a lot of different plants in there." So
Yeah.
I guess my bees have a proprietary recipe.
Yeah.
I only get that honey from a certain location if I get the hives there in the early spring. So
Wow. That's pretty cool. Well, we want to thank Tom. Tom, thanks for your donation. Hey, look at that, John. He says he loves your pocket guide to honeybee health. Great work.
yeah. Well, then I guess he needs to put hashtag tip for John on there too. Yeah.
Go
That
ahead
was
and
clearly meant for me.
go ahead and donate it to me, and I'll split it with John. You know. Yeah, John did write a great booklet on honeybee health, pocket edition, and that thing is great to have in your pocket when you're looking for diseases in your hive. You've got the pictures there, a lot of fun. We even had some of the bigger books printed up as well. And that's a great booklet.
It's also you can also get that directly on your phone. It's optimized to look at on your phone. If you go to behealth.uada.edu.
Okay, say it one more time.
Behealth, all one word, behealth.uada.edu.
Okay. And that is, they can download the pocketbook. Is that what you're saying? Or is it an app on their phone?
It just displays all that information in that pocket-sized book on your phone, but it's optimized to look at on a small screen. It's not that full-size publication because, the print would be really tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's called Bee Health?
Yes.
Let me write that down for everybody. I'll make it run across the screen. Give it to me one more time.
Okay.
What's
Bee Health. .uada.edu.
UADA.edu. Okay, that's pretty easy.
Yeah, it looks like that. Well, I don't know. You can't see that, but you can. Yeah, as you can clearly see.
Let me see if I got it right. How about that on the screen?
That works.
Okay, good. Cool. Just get it on their phone, play around with it. That's cool.
Yeah, those little booklets, they were great. We had a grant from the USDA to print those up, so we were able to give them away. But everybody asks, but I do not have any to sell, so we gave them away. They went like candy. So
yeah,
glad that they're appreciated.
Yeah, I don't remember if we have any still. I think we took a bunch to Hive Life, and then I think we brought. I don't remember if we brought some home or not. Can't remember. John, so you and I talk bees a lot. We always we wrote a queen book together. That was a lot of fun. A lot of people enjoyed that little booklet that we wrote on queens, and a lot of people have got that. Here's the link to that booklet. But why we did that? John and I felt like we needed the beekeepers needed a simple book that they could just look at and get the kind of the basic principles behind raising queens. And so we went to work with photos, and those of you that have obtained this booklet, which you can get right here free, or if you want to buy, one, I think we might have some available at honeybeesonline.com, but we're just covering our expenses of getting that book printed because it is a full color booklet, not cheap to have printed. But
yeah, we kind of went through all the bare bones step by step without all the extraneous stuff, and kind of documented every step of the way and tried to make it easy to understand.
Yeah, I told John recently, we can make a larger book because a lot of people like this book, and a large book is simply a booklet like the one we wrote, and then you just fill in all the other space with a lot of stories, a lot more drilling down into things.
Yeah, more scientific biology explanations behind it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Bigger photos.
Yeah. But we thought, just get the bullet points out there in front of people. That'd be a big help to them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So are you working on any unique things now, John, at the university there? What are you up to now?
Yeah,
Oh,
there's
that's
my
one of your
son.
sons, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, tell us about your
One of my
children.
many sons.
Yeah. So together, wait a minute. Let's talk about children now. John and I both have like 14 children together. Well,
Well, that doesn't really sound very
yeah.
good
Okay, not
together.
together.
There, we have 14 together. We have 14 children with a couple of different women.
No, that doesn't sound right either.
Well,
Let's see.
those
We're
women
both,
are our wives.
yeah, we're both happily married. You have 8 children.
You got 8 children,
I have
including the
6
one there
children.
in the corner.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hi, Calvin. And so I have 6. You have 8 children. I love going to conferences with you because when people come up to me and they go like, "How many children do you have, David?" "Oh, I have 6 children." They go, "Wow, 6 kids!" I immediately turn their attention to you by saying, "But he has 8." And then they were like, "8," and then I can just get out of it,
Then I say David's just a beginner,
Amateur, right?
amateur. That's right.
Black Dog Apiary and Farm, $50. Oh my, I might be working that flow hive. I think
All
we have like
right.
60 or $80 toward the flow hive.
I think the end of that got cut off. That was supposed to say hashtag for John. Yeah.
Oh
Well,
my
David,
gosh.
have you seen those new hives that don't have any exits?
John has a dry sense of humor. I feel like he's taking us down a road now.
They're unbelievable.
Oh, that is some dry wit right there. Yeah.
That was for my son. He
Unbelievable.
wanted a good dad joke, so there we've checked
Okay.
that box now.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Unbelievable. Wow. Okay, so like I was saying, we have a lot of good times together, and we talk bees a lot. And I was asking you, are you doing anything special, any projects with beekeeping now, and so on?
Yeah, we've got a couple things going on. Just finished a manuscript to publish. It's kind of a review article on different risks to pollinators and agricultural systems. So we're another friend of mine. We just finished that. We're going to send that off, and we're starting an experiment with strawberry pollination coming up. We're going to be looking at using bees to vector bacterial spores or fungal spores that prevent other fungi from growing on the flowers that cause that gray mold you get when you bring your strawberries home from the supermarket.
Yeah.
They sit too long and they start to get fuzzy. So we're going to see if it's practical in our area to have the bees deliver, a biological agent that can prevent that. All natural, all organic, and they kind of work antagonistically. So not a whole lot I can say about it now. I probably said too much already. But
That's when I'm always with you. I'm like, David, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but don't tell me about it, or I can't really tell you exactly all of
this
it.
has been done. Other people have proved that you can do it, but it's a matter of being able to do it in a practical manner.
Mm-hmm.
And with bees and everything, it's a biological system, so it's the kind of thing that you can get to work in a laboratory, but getting everything to cooperate in the field doesn't always work. So
Absolutely.
this is just kind of a preliminary study.
Yeah. I'm glad Black Dog Apiary and Farm, all your bees survived the winter. Wow.
Oh, good job.
Yeah, that's a good feeling. It's pretty devastating. I know some people watching probably lost some bees in the wintertime, and that's so depressing, so sad. So if you did lose your bees, just pick up and try it again next year. Got some drawn comb ready to go.
That's right. And great thing to do is make some splits and catch some swarms.
Yeah. John, you and I have done some presentations, some talks together. I remember we were at Missouri one year, and we both, I think you talked about swarm control. You've been up here in my training center and presented at my events here on swarm control. Pretty good. New B Team 6 member, Mudgy, hoping to turn things around. Yeah. I'm excited about helping beekeepers. I don't think beekeeping is as hard as we make it. I don't think so. I think, John, when I had my most trouble with beekeeping, it was all me, right? I was just not paying attention to mites or paying attention to the queen, if she was laying well or giving them enough room to expand, or, you know.
You and I have been in it a long time, and you got to remember when we were new at this, it did seem overwhelming. There was a steep learning curve, and so
Yes,
you get a lot of conflicting opinions about what to do and who to listen to.
Yeah.
So
you and I kind of feel like we are the ones that, well, I won't go down that road.
Everyone should listen to us. That's what you're
No. That's not right at all. That we say that jokingly, don't we? You know.
Yeah.
But anyway, you and I have made some presentations on swarm control. This is the time of the year, and I know a lot of people are kind of waiting with bated breath about.
We've already had swarms reported here.
Have you really?
Wow. Yeah, we've had some really warm weather, and then it's kind of cooled off, and we got a lot of rain the last few days and coming up. But yeah, I expect next week when the rain stops that swarms are going to start emerging again.
Yeah. I have a technique that I use. I'll go first, and it's probably not the one that I use at all for honey production. It's the one that I use in my apiary because I really don't have to have a lot of honey anymore. People want honey from us, but I like to turn my honey back into my hives for another split or kind of growing queen nukes or something like that. So I'm not really all that into selling honey as much. So for me, I would rather split my hives and have more bees or more hives right now. That's just me than to have the honey. So for me, it's easy. So I have a big colony. If I split it one time early in the spring, maybe pull 4 frames out and I split it, that's a split. But I'll give you a hint. That will never prevent a swarm. No, it won't. That's not enough. If I split it twice,
slow it down, but not stop.
Yeah, it'll slow it down. And now I can split it twice, and that helps more. But I have found unless I split it 3 times, they will swarm anyway. That's just how big they are and how much they want to reproduce. Even the first time when I take the old queen away, they will still raise a new queen and swarm with her. So it's amazing. There's a lot of different ways to make splits and to not make splits. And I made a video, John, a few days ago that said, where I said, if you want to have more colonies this year, then make your splits. But if you want to have more honey this year, then don't split. Keep your colonies together. Avoid a swarm, avoid making the split. And one of the ways that
Right. But that's the hard part right there.
It's terribly hard.
It's easy to say, don't split, don't let them swarm, but trying to convince your bees to not swarm, that's the hard part.
That's right. Almost every swarm control method is not perfect. It's not proven to be 100% effective all the time.
Yeah.
There's always a chance that either we're going to make a mistake, there'll be a queen cell we didn't see, something's going to happen. But one of the methods is the Demaree method that a lot of people have talked about for years, the Demaree method. What do you think about that method?
It can probably work. I've never done it personally. It goes back to the late 19th century. George Demaree kind of developed that idea. It's a lot of monkeying around, a lot of labor.
Yeah.
But you can do that, and it kind of creates the natural conditions of a swarm, and you don't lose your worker population. You don't break the brood cycle, but it's labor intensive. You have to rearrange the colony so that your queen is separated from most of the brood and the other resources. Yep. Kind of the way she would if she left the hive and took a bunch of bees with her. She would, ideally end up in a hollow tree somewhere down the road and have to start from scratch.
Well, walk us through this method. Like here's the first scene. What do we have going on here?
All right. Well, what you've got there is a hive that's full of brood and it's got some honey, but if you leave that alone, the brood nest is going to get honey bound every time an adult bee hatches out of its pupal cell. Then another bee will come along and start putting nectar in there, and then the queen gets crowded, and so something's got to give that will probably lead to a swarm. So you can get out some other equipment. You're going to need a couple more boxes and a queen excluder, and either just foundation or some drawn comb. And then you have to rearrange the hive.
Yep, you rearrange the hive like this.
Yeah, so there you go. So you move almost all the resources upstairs above a queen excluder, and you've got that empty box there just below the queen excluder with a brand new foundation, and then down below you've got your queen, and you've got a frame or two of very young larvae, or the frame the queen has been laying on, and maybe another one of open brood, maybe a little bit of food down there just to tide them over. But then a lot of just empty combs that the queen can lay in, and even some more, empty foundation there. But what you've done now is you've kind of separated the queen from everything else. Like I said, in the same situation where you would have in a natural swarm situation. So the queen and the workers, they occupy this empty cavity, and they have to build all new comb. So bees that are preparing to swarm, they gorge themselves on honey for a week or more before the swarm leaves, and it activates or reactivates their wax glands, so they are ready to draw out comb. They know if they're going to move into an empty cavity in a tree or something, the first thing they have to do is build out more comb to store food, so the queen can begin to lay eggs. So their wax glands are really primed for that. So if you can catch a swarm and put them in a hive, they'll generally draw comb out pretty quickly. So giving them that foundation there also just gives them a big empty space where there's not going to be any bees for a while. So the queen isn't going to move up on there like she might if it was drawn comb. So that kind of keeps her separated. And then up above, any queen cells that may have been in that hive, that's where they're going to be. And of course, in a natural situation, you've got a virgin queen that inherits a colony with plenty of brood, plenty of food. She just steps into the job. She goes off to mate. But in this case, you don't want that any queens to establish up there. So you would want to remove any queen cells you found, and then you'd probably come back about a week later and make sure that you got them all, because sometimes those swarm cells are tricky. We like them when they're great big, you can see them, but sometimes they're kind of shallow, they're kind of hidden. They've got comb around them anywhere that it's maybe has been damaged. So as those adult bees emerge, then of course all the comb up above doesn't get more eggs in it, so it's available for honey storage. And down below, your worker bees are busy drawing out new combs. Depending if you have a nectar flow that's really strong, you may or may not have to feed them syrup. You would not want to feed them syrup if you are wanting them storing nectar up above. But your queen's got room to lay downstairs. Nurse bees are attracted to the queen, and they're going to migrate down there. And after a couple of weeks, you can take that queen excluder out, rearrange it all, move stuff around if you want to, but you can kind of do it at the right time that you overcome that swarming impulse with the bees. Because they've got lots of room. Also, if you've got any drone comb that's up above the queen excluder, those drones get stuck. They can't leave. And so you have to make sure you let them out at a certain stage where they're going to get stuck and die in there.
How about answering a question? By the way, thank you, Mark, for the $20 super sticker donation. Appreciate that. How about this, John? So can they reactivate their wax glands at any time when they're needed?
Bees follow kind of a general plan of glandular activation. Certain glands build up and then they sort of atrophy as the bees work through those different jobs, as they age. So the brood food glands, and then later the wax glands. But there's a lot of plasticity built into that plan. So if you when we make a split, for instance, we shake a bunch of bees into another box and take them away, we kind of mess up that optimal age balance that they have and the jobs that they do. So bees can regress back and do other jobs. It's just that they have to, in order to reactivate their wax glands, older bees would have to consume a lot of honey, a lot of sugar, a lot of nectar in order to be able to do that. They may not be as good at producing wax as a younger, proper aged bee might be, but they can still do the job. Did I lose you, David? Looks like we've got another question here from Flower Street Farm Bees.
Yeah.
How would replacing the second box just foundation with a honey super or two change how you cycle through a Demaree? I guess the bees would still perform the same kind of actions. I assume she's talking about that second box down below, the one directly below the queen excluder. So if you put a medium honey super there, is that what they're asking about?
Sounds like it.
Or even two, they're still going to do the same thing. I think the diagram we have is using all deeps because everything is interchangeable that way. If you make the mediums, then the queen is below the queen excluder. She may start putting brood into that medium. If she fills up the lower boxes with brood, she may migrate up into that honey super. But again, after a couple of weeks, you can rearrange them and move things around. You could take empty combs from above and put them down below, move the honey supers up above the excluder, really do whatever you wanted.
How about a top entrance?
That can work. That'd be a great way to let the drones enter and exit. And of course, anytime you have multiple entrances, you just have to have a strong enough colony that they can fend off things like wax moths and small hive beetles, and which is practically impossible, but and robber bees, which isn't such a big issue in the spring, I guess. When there's plenty of flowers in bloom, robbing isn't a real issue.
Yeah. And you know about robber bees. I mean, you know about small hive beetle, don't you?
We've got a few here.
Oh, wow.
They're practically our state bird, it seems like. So
what's the advantage over Demaree over a Snellgrove method?
Wow. So using a Snellgrove board, there's a lot of different uses for a Snellgrove board. You can... There is a method, I think, that Snellgrove wrote about for preventing swarms or trying to stop swarms. But I guess we should explain for people who aren't familiar what a Snellgrove board is. So it's sort of like an inner cover, but there's a screen across that hole in the middle. Sometimes it's got much larger holes too. So odors and pheromones and heat can pass from one side to the other, but generally I think there's two screens that prevents the bees from communicating. There's just enough of a gap. They can't share food with each other and pass queen pheromones and things like that.
Yeah.
So you can split a colony, put say half the bees and resources on top, similar to what we've done here. You put the queen on the bottom with a little bit of young brood, and then the Snellgrove board it's got entrances on multiple sides,
and top and bottom of those.
Yeah,
sides.
Above and below. So the board it's got a board in the middle, and then there's a little space above and below, and there's entrances on 3 or 4 sides on both above and below. So I think the original one had little trapezoid wedges that he stuck in there, but a lot of the ones you buy now have a sort of they're on a pin and they rotate, so you can flip them open and closed. But what you would do is kind of arrange it like we showed with the Demaree method, and then you put the emerging brood up above, and you open an entrance that faces a different direction than the front of the hive. So if they're open to one side or the back, any bees that are moved up to the top that are foragers, when they fly out, they return to the hive, they go into the entrance they've always gone into. So it moves them down below where the queen is. And so any fresh food that they're bringing home, nectar, pollen, it returns to the bottom where the queen is.
Right.
And then after a few days, the foraging bees, maybe after a week, those foraging bees are basically going to disappear. They're dying of old age. Foragers don't last very long. The ones that go down below, of course, they stay down below, but then they're going to age out. The ones up above that go through those different jobs, once they reach a foraging job, their first trip out of the hive is an orientation flight. So they will orient on that upper exit, say it's to the right side of the hive.
Right.
So they're going to come and go through that entrance. And then what you can do is close that and open the one day when there's a bunch of bees out, and open the one just below it. So it's actually a top entrance, but it's just, a half an inch below that. So those bees that are foraging, they're going back and forth, they return, and they will automatically go in the closest entrance they can find. Meanwhile, you've opened the top entrance on the opposite side of the hive. So now you've got other bees that are exiting, and when they return, they come back to the other side of the hive where they always have. They go in that lower entrance. So you're kind of slowly shifting bees as they emerge down below, and you're building up that population down below. And then you can do the same thing again later as you get more bees going in and out a different exit. You change it up, and so it's a lot of monkeying around there.
I think one thing's clear on both of these methods. It is labor intense. There's a lot of work that has to be gone into it. Now, Marianne Livingston made a $10 donation. Thank you, Marianne. She says, I'm a newbie trying to absorb all of this. My head is spinning. Yeah, my head's spinning too. That's why I often don't try a lot of these methods. I have done them in the past, and they are so much work. And
trying to wrap your head around why you do all of these steps. There is a logic to it, but you got to kind of think it through and understand what's going on. But performing some of these things, you start to see, when you open one of those top exits, you have a lot of bees coming and going, and then over a little time, there's fewer and fewer bees because they are returning down to below, and that's when you open a different one, and you get a different cohort of bees. So
so here's what I'm going to do, John. I am going to take, let's see, what's today? Thursday. Over the next few days, I'm going to actually, it's too cold outside to do these things, but I'm going to set it up indoors, and I'll make a video. How's that? I'll make a video on how to do the Demaree method and how to do a double screen method. Oh, we haven't talked about another interesting, this would be a split though, not a swarm control. This would be the Taranov split. Am I saying that right? Taranov?
Taranov?
Taranov.
Yeah.
Taranov. Taranov. Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
George Taranov?
Don't know how to pronounce it. Yeah.
And so I'll explain it. It's really cool. It's basically when you make a ramp, make a ramp, and you take it up to your hive, a wooden ramp, but you can leave it about 4 inches away from the bottom board. So there's a gap, right?
Yeah.
And then you take all the frames out of your big hive there, and you shake all the bees off the frames onto this ramp. Now, the idea is that the bees that are older flyers are going to fly back into the hive, while your queen and some of the very young bees are going to hang on to the ramp. And so the ramp now becomes the swarm that you created. And you can walk away with this swarm and put it in a box or something, and either give the other hive a new queen or queen cell, or let them raise their own even. But that's the Taranov split. I've heard people mention that a lot lately.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've never done that one myself.
Me
A lot of
neither.
times
I want to try
when
that.
people make a Taranov board, they'll put a towel or something hanging off the edge of it, because when the bees walk up to the end and they stop, they'll kind of go down under the board, and having like a terry cloth towel there, it gives them something they can really grip on, and they'll kind of gather under there, just some piece of cloth. But your older bees fly back into the hive where all the brood is, and if you've got any queen cells, they'll rear it out, and you've got all of your nurse bees and the queen left on the ramp. So then you just pick that up and you shake it into another hive, and you've got your split there.
Yeah. Good.
I've seen photos of it. I've never done it myself. What you're going to get is a real divide of, age of bees.
I know, John. Yeah, that's
unnatural.
That's what I'm afraid of too, because you just kind of stripped it of all the young nurse bees, didn't you?
So your foragers have only got about, on average, 7 days of life once they graduate to forager, maybe maximum 14.
Right.
They're geriatric bees. Now, we can assume this is a populous hive and you've got all ages of brood, so you're going to have young brood hatching out, and so by the time those queen cells emerge and your queen mates, your new one, and comes back, then you're going to have plenty of young nurse bees to take care of her and to take care of the brood. But in the meantime, you will have open brood cells.
Yeah.
And then you got a bunch of grandma bees in there whose brood food glands have begun to shrivel up. They're going to have to reactivate and produce a lot of royal jelly. So
absolutely,
you may have a non-optimal period of a few days there. But
what about this question? Are there times when a queen excluder isn't recommended? Those swarm queens are pretty thin, aren't they? So, John, I'm going to do a study. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take something about this big around, a cylinder, a clear cylinder, and in the middle, I'm going to cut a groove, and I'm going to put queen excluder material, but I'm going to experiment with both a metal one and a plastic one. And then I'm going to get a virgin queen and put her in on one side, and I'll maybe put some honey or something on the other side, have my cameras seeing how, if she can work, a virgin queen can work her way through this queen excluder material. And then I'm going to take a mated queen, put her in a queen cage, maybe 3 or 4 days, maybe put a little honey to keep her alive. But I want to see if a mated queen who's not fed well by a colony, if she's in a queen cage, like in a package, like you would see in a package of bees, if she's thin enough to go through there. So I'm wondering, is it the thorax or the abdomen that's preventing that queen from passing through that queen excluder material?
I'm going to say it's the abdomen. The thorax doesn't really change in size very much.
That's right. Yeah.
A virgin queen gains most of her weight in the abdomen. Now, a queen that is preparing to swarm is eating less. I don't know if she accepts less food or if they feed her less, but she slims down. She's got to get to a flying weight. Right. Because when she is really gravid and full of eggs and they feed her a lot, she can't fly very well. She kind of flutters to the ground safely, but
right. Very
falling
good.
with style, I think you called it one time.
Falling with style, like Buzz Lightyear.
Buzz Lightyear, yeah. Because
I'm going to give a shout out, excuse me, to Kevin. He says, "Yay, David! I'm on the verge of swarming here in North Carolina mountains. Would love a video on Demaree and double screen bottom methods. That's worth more than the $20 donation." Thank you, Kevin, for that donation. Again, I take the money that you donate in this live stream and use it to make more live streams, to have guests on, and to do experiments with things that cost money to purchase. So I appreciate that a lot. Thank you. Question from Steve: if I catch a swarm and hold them until the hive they came from has a new queen, can I add those back to the hive without the old queen? I would say yes, but only with the newspaper method.
Yes, because the old hive with a new queen is going to have a different odor.
Yep.
If you hold those bees with their queen and then you remove the queen right before you dump them in, then they're gonna have loyalty to a different smelling queen.
That's right. Yeah. Gary asked a question: is it true that a hive will stop feeding a queen, chase her around the hive to lose weight so she can slip through the queen excluder? I've read some of Tom Seeley's work, and you have too, John, that and others have shown that the queen really isn't motivated to leave the hive, that other bees will come up beside of her. And like you said earlier, maybe they stop feeding her as much, but they have to kind of warm her up or excite her to leave with the swarm.
Yeah, I think Tom Seeley did an experiment where he got hives ready to swarm, but he caged the queen, and the workers would come up and press their bodies against the queen and against the queen cage and kind of do a buzzing, piping type of sound, and it was like a signal that it was time to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I have read somewhere, I don't know if it was him, it might have been in Steve Rapasky's book, that they really kind of start pushing her around and treating her kind of rough, as if to motivate her to get moving.
Yeah. I was at a conference the other day, I don't remember where, Northern Illinois, and somebody tried to tell me that they were surprised that the queen could manage an entire colony to give out all the orders and tell everybody what to do. And I was like, she doesn't. She doesn't give out any orders. She basically does two things. She lays eggs and she spreads pheromones. That's about it. If anything, it's
a lot of pheromones, and they're very important, but they are all part of these feedback loops that the whole hive is programmed to respond to in different ways. The amounts of pheromones and things like that. But there's also worker pheromones and brood pheromones that are all feeding into this system of information that all the bees are drawing their instructions from. They know what the colony needs at any given time based on all of that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Do you know the difference between a standard Demaree and a rolling Demaree?
I'm assuming one's got wheels on the bottom.
That's what I thought too. Like one seems a little more kind of flowing and going, maybe. I have no idea. I'll look that one up.
Yeah. Now, getting back to what we were talking about a minute ago about queens fitting through queen excluders. Many years ago, I had a hive of two of bees at my father-in-law's house, and he called me one day and told me that my bees were swarming. They were up in a tree. And so I went out there and brought a new hive, and I shook them down out of the tree, and I put them in a hive basically right next to, 3 or 4 feet from where they came from. And then I left. And he called me later and said, I had another swarm in the same tree. So I went back out there, and it was the same bees. They had left the hive and gone higher up in the tree. So I got a ladder and I got him and I put him back in the hive. And I had some stern words for them, and then I left. And he called me a third time. It was the same bees. So I went back out and I brought a queen excluder, and I opened the hive and I put the queen excluder down just above the bottom board. Then I put the deep hive body on, shook the bees back into it and closed it up. And then I left them in there for about 4 days. When I came back, I made sure that the queen had started laying because they had drawn comb in there, and she had, and then I removed the queen excluder. But that was the only way I could think of to keep her in there because I didn't want to have to keep coming back, and they kept going higher up the same tree.
Wow, yeah.
So they were determined to move out.
Yeah, if that would have been an after swarm with a virgin queen, it's possible she could have slipped through that queen excluder, right?
Probably, but it was a pretty good sized swarm. I didn't want to lose it, and I can't remember. It may have had a marked queen, but she was she was a good one, I think, and that was how I kept her in there. So
Yeah.
whether she just gave up after the third time and didn't try, or maybe she did try and couldn't get out, I don't know, but it did stop her that time. So that's a good use for a queen excluder, in my opinion.
Here's something about a queen excluder, John. And this, you hear so much stuff. We read so much stuff. We hear so many things. People say things. I don't know whether or not I heard this from somebody or I came up with it myself. I have no clue. But anyway, I've heard that on a metal queen excluder that it has ribs going horizontal or whichever way you want to, one way and then the other way. These metal ribs that kind of hold all the metal together. And that if you put it on upside down where those other ribs, those metal strands are facing up, where it's not touching the queen, that she can actually start squeezing through because there's nothing to stop her from shoving herself up through there. But if you flip it over, where now you have not only these metal rails, but these metal rails too, facing down, every time she tries to squeeze up, she hits one of those metal rails and she can't keep trying to get through there. I thought it was genius. I thought, yeah, well, if you use a plastic queen excluder, there's no way she can do that. But on the other hand,
well, even a metal one, you've got a pretty good sized gap on those long wires. They're usually round wires, but the pieces that keep those wires in place are spaced apart. Plenty of room that a queen can slip through if that's what she wanted to.
And she could stay in one spot, couldn't she? And just try to like wiggle her way through.
Even though her abdomen is supposedly too wide to get through there, it's still flexible. And I think you could probably force a queen through one if you really wanted to. It might injure her.
She might be in two parts afterwards.
She might be, but
Yeah. Thank you for the super sticker. Sonofon 1, $10 super sticker. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Castle Hives makes a good point that, if you aren't taking care of your queen excluder, those metal ones, they can get bent, and that's all it takes. So
I've thrown a lot of bent ones away. Sometimes I don't know, you're stacking them, your hive tool hits them or something, and a little bit wide of the gap. She's
trying to pry them off with too much propolis, and they just bend in the middle. Yeah. So there's no guarantees in beekeeping. Most of what we do, it's kind of on average, it tends to work okay, but there's always exceptions on both ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely. And while we're talking about spring, how about we give away one of my spring online beekeeping courses? Let me find one of those. Okay. Let's see. We could give away a spring online beekeeping course. And let's say if you're interested in getting a spring online course, which would be good, talked about swarm control, making splits, honey production, let's use the word #swarm. How about that? #swarm. Just leave that in the comment now. #swarm, and then we'll draw. Let me start collecting the comments here. Okay, and then we'll draw for a winner of the spring management course. Okay, we've had 16 people. #swarm. We'll draw and pick a winner. Okay. So yeah, John, interesting on swarms. So in your neck of the woods in Arkansas, do you get too concerned about swarms in your hives, or you splitting them? What's your preferred method?
I would have to say I do get concerned about swarms because I live in the city. So I'm in the city limits, and I want to be a good, conscientious urban beekeeper. I have a big yard, but there's a lot of houses around, and I would feel morally obligated to go and remove those from somebody's wall if I thought they were my bees. So just to keep them out of mischief and to prevent the loss of bees, it's something that I do try to stop. You can make more honey with one large hive than two small hives.
Yes, right.
So when you split, technically, you should not be getting as much honey, but if you don't split and they swarm, then you've lost half of your bees anyway, and there's no telling where they may end up. So I would
Well,
rather
that's true. Yeah.
I'd rather do that. And making splits early in the season is generally what I do to prevent swarms.
Making splits. Yep. Yeah, me too. But you do produce a lot of honey. I always see you guys, you, your wife, your family, you guys are making a lot of honey every year.
Yeah, I haven't really tried to make as much as I used to lately.
Mhm.
It's kind of what you said. I'm busy doing a lot of other things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's no shortage of customers for honey, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Once you are known as a good honey producer in your neighborhood, people
Yep.
people
All
will
right, let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and draw, and we give 10 seconds. If you type #swarm in the comments, you could win a free online spring management course just in time. 114, 8, 7, 6, 5. And then, John, here's where, like, if you're watching a Batman episode, that even though there was 30 seconds left, the episode actually lasts another 10 minutes, doesn't it? All right, let's get to 120 and then we'll draw. 120 coming up. We're at 119. Oh, 121. 2 people made it in. And let's make a draw. Who's going to win the online spring management course?
Did I make it in time?
Well, maybe. Let's see. Oh, David
Oh,
Chris.
Congratulations, David.
Way to go, David. Wow.
Looks like David has a helper there too.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Just in time to get some things done to prevent some swarming. Cool. So, John, what I like about you is not only do you know so much about bees, but you have an amazing history of you've been a chef, you've been a jeweler, you're good. Maybe you have a degree in botany, and you're
I worked
just
at a car wash for one day.
You've worked at a car wash. I mean, who can say that, right? You could wash my car. You've been keeping secrets. Darn.
I could fix your eyeglasses. I used to do that.
You used to do eyeglasses? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah. So yeah. Well, if you can't hold down a job, then you get a lot of experience.
And what did you do? What did you do to get your PhD? What do you have a thesis that you worked on? What?
Yeah, my dissertation, we were really looking at some of the different pesticides that are used in agriculture here in the Mid-South area, and kind of looking at how they moved into beehives, what was moving into beehives. At the time, a real hot topic was seed treatments, seed treated crops, where they basically put a pesticide on the coating on the outside of the seed, and then when they plant the seed and it starts to sprout, it absorbs that material from the seed coating up into the plant and protects it when it's very small. So there was a lot of controversy around that at the time, and people were associating those seed treatments with colony collapse and some other stuff. So we kind of looked into some of that, and we really did an exhaustive survey of all of the farm fields within a 2-mile radius of an apiary we had, basically in the middle of farmland. And, we kind of measured the number of acres in a 2-mile radius and what percentage of the landscape was in various crops and what was, basically wild areas, tree lines and fallow fields and things like that. And then we were able to look at the pollen that the bees were carrying back into the hive with pollen traps. We could separate it from the bees as they were entering the hive, and you could do that chronologically. So on a specific date, this is what bees were foraging on. On another date, they were doing this. And so we had some help with other labs where we looked at the botanical source of those pollens, and then we sent a lot of it off to the National Science Lab, and we had it screened for common pesticides. And so it was a lot of tedious technical work, but what we found was that in in the location where I am, there were actually very few insecticides that the bees were bringing back, but there was a ton of different herbicides and fungicides.
Oh, really?
And we found no neonicotinoids. By the time the plants were big enough to flower in the area where we are, we really couldn't detect it in the pollen. The exception was we could find some in corn, but even that was at pretty low levels. And, we also found that bees basically ignore most of the crops in favor of wildflowers for most of the season. The only time they really went to the soybeans and things were when we were in a real hot, dry period, a real nectar dearth here.
Right.
But even around the agricultural fields where it stays irrigated, the rest of the state may be pretty dry. You get a lot of wildflowers that are growing around there.
Yeah,
but
I hear
a lot of herbicides because those are considered weeds by the farmers. And so the bees are actively seeking out things that the farmers are trying to get rid of.
Yeah, here in Illinois, we have a lot of soybeans and corn. And
yeah,
I always
soybeans
think
and corn are about the two major crops, which
And
of course don't require bees.
And I thought I would have a lot of bees out there on the soybeans, but I've looked into the fields under the foliage of the soybeans, and boy, I've rarely seen any bees on it when it's flowering. There's clover, there's Dutch white clover at the time. So
Yeah,
they
now
prefer
different varieties of soybeans will produce more or less nectar.
Yeah,
And it has to do with soil conditions and soil moisture and things like that. So there's definitely differences, but the varieties that they grow, they change every couple of years. So
yeah. What about
you can't just ask a farmer to grow beans that are good for bees. It's not really in
that'd
their
be nice.
interest
Yeah,
because
wishful thinking.
soybeans are self-pollinating,
Right.
like a lot of legumes.
So is corn. Corn is wind pollinated.
Corn is wind pollinated.
Yeah.
So and then rice, we grow a lot of rice here. All your cereal grains are self-pollinating or wind pollinated.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about, you've done a lot of work with, is it called RFI, RDFI, the little
RFIDs,
chips?
radio frequency identification. Yeah.
Are you allowed to talk about any of that work?
Yeah. We've still got plans to work on that some more. We did some preliminary work a couple of years ago, but we got very tiny microchips. They were smaller than a varroa mite, 0.5 millimeter square. And of course, that's too small to be able to put a battery on. So they're activated with a high intensity light, a laser. We used a red laser because bees can't see red. But the problem is trying to get bees to walk under a laser beam that's less than 1 millimeter wide is kind of difficult. So I did all kinds of experiments trying to get bees to go in and out single file through these narrow little lanes. And but when you hit one of these microchips with a laser, it broadcasts a radio signal very weakly, very briefly, but it's a unique serial number. And so the laser actually has a radio antenna built into the tip of it. So if you can get a bee to walk right under one, it will identify that individual bee and the date and time, and when she left the hive and when she returned. And so we were looking to see how many trips they make in and out of a hive on a day, and how many they make in a lifetime, and what happens if they're exposed to various pesticides, how it affects their, all of those numbers. So still want to refine that work. Other people have done similar things. So
did you actually have to pick them up and glue them on the thorax of a honeybee?
Super glue. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Are they smaller than a piece of glitter? How big are they? They're tiny.
Yeah, they're tiny. They're 0.5 millimeter. So, smaller than a varroa mite.
Gosh.
You can pick them up easily enough with a wet toothpick.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and of course, I used a microscope to be able to see them. I would take day-old bees, less than 24 hours old. You can identify a callow bee by its appearance.
Yeah.
Yeah. They kind of have
hairy, blonde.
yeah, real pale blonde hair. They look like wet kittens to me. So
And they can't really sting you. Stinger is
no,
not hard
no,
enough.
they're pretty weak. So if you take them out and put them in the refrigerator for about half an hour, they basically will, they're cold blooded, so they just stop moving. And you have to work fast because when you put them under a microscope with a bright light, they start to warm up. So we use what they're called featherweight forceps. They're real floppy but easy, gently pick up a bee. Kind of made this little cardboard cradle they'd lay in, and then just a drop of glue with a toothpick, and use the other toothpick to stick a microchip on the back of them, and then it dries pretty quickly. You got to scan the bee so that you can identify that particular serial number associated with that bee. I'd put 2 chips on each bee, actually, so that's why I had to scan them so that I could associate both of those serial numbers with an individual bee. And then put them back into the hive pretty quickly because they'll need to feed and everything. But there didn't seem to be any detriment to them. They lived a normal lifespan.
That's cool. That's good
Yeah.
work. Did you ever
had to write some code so that each bee that got scanned, whether it scanned the first chip or the second one going in and out, we would know that it's the same bee.
Thank you, Betty, for your $20 donation. I appreciate that. That's great. Betty, I see Betty's comments on my YouTube videos a lot, and I always appreciate hearing from Betty. John, did you ever go to supper with your family after putting all those little things on bees and have one stuck to your nose or on the end of your forehead or something?
Well, actually, I was doing this. I had to kind of scale back that experiment because it was during the COVID lockdown, and I was sitting at the kitchen table with my microscope that I'd brought home from work, and I put all my stuff away, and I got up to take a break, go do something. And when I came back, I looked at the chair that I had been sitting in and the floor, and everywhere I looked were these tiny little green microchips that I had been using.
Really?
And I looked down and I made this mental calculation. Oh my word. There was like $800 worth of microchips spread out all over the floor. I was so mad that somebody in my house, my kids, my pets, something had happened and knocked over this little vial that I had like 1,000 of these microchips in. I was beyond livid, and I was down there on my hands and knees with a wet toothpick picking these things up. And I got a bunch, and then I looked at them under my microscope to make sure that they were okay. And it turns out they were pieces of glitter from one of my kids' art projects. I was all upset, and I was panicking. What am I going to tell my advisor? I've lost hundreds of dollars worth of microchips.
Oh, that's funny.
No, it was tiny little bits of glitter that somebody had been playing with. So
that's a hoot. Yeah.
The joys of parenthood.
Okay, I'm going to take one more question. Let's see. Somebody asked me, let's see if I can find it. Here it is. What is your preferred purchase package, Nook, or established hive? Well, an established hive is going to cost me way too much money. Nah, it's going to be $500, so I'm not going to buy that. Packages and Nooks, packages you can get earlier usually. And so, but then you don't have any comb. You have to kind of introduce the queen and hope that the new package doesn't abscond away on you. Whereas a nucleus, a 5-frame nuke, it's all running. It has a queen that's laying, but it's usually a little more expensive because you're buying frames and comb that's already drawn out and usually a box to go with it. So I'm a coin toss between a package and a nucleus. Either one works good for me, really. I've always liked packages. I think they're fine too. Nukes are good as long as you have good knowledge of who you're buying them from. And they have a good history of providing good queens and healthy colonies. Here in Illinois, our nucleuses have to be inspected. They also have to have a moving permit before we can sell them, but not all places require that. And so you don't always know what you're getting. So that's the trouble with buying a nuke.
Yeah. I tend to prefer nukes myself. I think they build up a little faster because you've
Yeah.
got a laying queen and you've got all the brood in there.
Yeah.
But you can't ship them through the mail, so you have to find somebody local who's
Right.
got them.
Yeah.
So I've bought nukes. I haven't bought any recently. I've sold nukes as well because when I make splits, sometimes I don't want that many hives. So
Yeah.
that's a great way to make a few $100 extra in the spring, as long as you get them inspected and follow the rules. There's always going to be a market for good nukes.
Yep.
Packages, I've usually had pretty good luck with packages. There have been a couple times when they were kind of subpar, a lot of dead bees in the package.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful where you're getting those from. But all of the bees in the package, except for the queen, are going to be dead in a month.
That's right. Yep.
They're all going to be replaced. So it doesn't
They
really matter who those bees were, where they came from. They're expendable. And then you want a good queen. So it's the queen quality that matters from that.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, we do want to thank Sherry for helping us out with all the live streaming too. There's not enough eyeballs. I don't have enough eyes to keep track of everything. So it's great to have Sherry helping us, and Brian is here with us helping things tonight as well. John, another question I want to ask, we're going to close up here in a few minutes, but I get to ask this question a lot. I'm going to get a new package, and as soon as I shake them in my hive, I'm going to put oxalic acid on them. That way they don't have any brood yet, and I can zap any mites that are on the bees. Mm-hmm. What do you think of that? I've got my thoughts, but I'll let you go first.
I would say that's one of those things that might help and probably can't hurt as long as you're doing it right. One of the things that we learned doing our experiments a few years ago, we were doing all this pesticide research. And so we established brand new colonies on brand new equipment, and we bought packaged bees so that we wouldn't have any tainted combs or anything. We actually tested bees from the package. The day we shook them out, we took a sample and we sent them off. Those bees tested positive for miticides. So wherever they came from, I won't say where we got them from, I'd have to look it up anyway, but wherever they came from, those bees had been treated before they came to us, probably because the package producer did not want a reputation for having bees with mites.
Yep.
So you might get that. Something that I've done before, you get your wooden box with the screen panels on the side. Something I did one year, I couldn't put them in the hive right away. I had to wait a day. So I took the package and I turned it on its side so the screen was facing down, and I put a piece of paper underneath it. And sure enough, in 24 hours or 12 hours, however long I left them there were a few mites. So it's definitely possible that you have mites. You might not.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Yeah.
So treating them with oxalic acid or thymol or what have you is not necessarily a bad idea.
The only thing that I'm concerned about, I'm playing with I've got a stink bug that's walking around here.
Oh yeah, look at you.
Don't want to irritate it or it will spray me with that terrible smell. So one of the things that concerns me about treating a package right after you install it, like the same day or next day, packages could abscond. And I could see potentially that reaction of the odor of the OA, the acid on those newly installed packages, could it possibly make them say, why would I want to stay here? And they would just up and leave. So I don't want to do anything that might cause them to leave. But, you could wait 10 days or you can wait 20 days and you use Formic Pro and kill below the caps if you wanted to do it that way. If you're worried about
if you wanted to do it same day, then you've probably still got the queen in a cage. So they're not likely to abscond without that queen. They may not have all accepted her as their queen yet, but some of them, they've definitely been interacting with that queen while it's in transit, and they are picking up her pheromones more than likely.
maybe pull the queen out if she's still in her cage, or
Yeah.
maybe hold her in a cage and treat them with OA and then put the queen back in there. I don't know. They
Yeah,
could
and
still
oxalic
abstain.
acid is only in the vapor stage for a real brief time. So
Right. Yeah. True.
The idea would be that you treat them before there's any brood, so there's all the mites are in the phoretic stage, which makes any treatment more effective. So if you waited 10 days, 20 days, then if there's any drawn comb, that queen is already producing brood, and so you've potentially got mites that are in the brood cells already, which kind of wouldn't help your situation if I think the person asking that question wanted to do it immediately to establish a hive that was free of mites. And even the products we have are only, maybe 90% effective. So
80 to 90. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's another good question. If no mites are found in my green drone brood, I guess like a green drone comb, or maybe drone brood between frames, do I still need to do an alcohol wash?
Somebody might be using their uncapping fork to pull out 100 drone cells or something.
Yeah, right. I definitely think so. I think you should get on a definite regimen of every 21, 30 days doing a mite test, regardless of what you see in your drones, because I've done green drone comb before, and I'll start pulling out the drones to look at them, and I really don't see any mites on the green drone comb. But if I do a mite test, I still get 2 to 3% mites. So they're still going in places around there, and just showed they just weren't there on those particular drones. So there's no guarantee. So I think
all new beekeepers should test for mites like once a month their first year. You will be astounded at the rate the mites build up. That will really influence your thinking further down the line.
Absolutely.
So make that part of your learning experience, because you'll see them start to take off, and then it can just become exponential. And if you do that in multiple hives, keep records, keep that in your little bee notebook, do multiple hives, and you'll see that one hive has few mites and another one just gets full. And you're going to realize that it's not something that's easy to keep track of, and it's not going to be across the board, but it will astound you how many mites are in a hive sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
It
is amazing how fast and I think some beekeepers just feel like, I don't see mites, I'm not noticing them, so it's not a big deal, it's a bunch of hype. But that's not true at all. They are a big deal. They're just hard to see. Yeah. Well, John, this has been fun tonight. Yeah, you're my first guest that I've had officially, a single guest the whole program. I've had other people pop in and out, but you're my first dedicated guest. So thanks for joining me tonight.
Glad to sit and visit.
Yeah.
Like we do anyway.
Yeah.
We're just doing it in front of an audience tonight.
I would say we do collaborate beekeeping stuff several times a week, don't we?
Yeah. We'll send each other a brief text message, but oftentimes we'll call with a brief question and wind up talking for 30, 40 minutes.
Some people don't know this, but you and I have had a podcast for a long time, many years.
Yeah, we haven't done anything new on it in a long time, but
we haven't. We're terrible. Yeah.
But we tried, and our schedules just didn't ever line up after a while. But
yeah, that's right.
I mean, this is kind of right here what we originally started out to do.
Yeah,
we didn't have the technology to do this then.
No, we didn't. No, not at all when we first started. One of the main reasons I called John is he's not only a great scientist, beekeeping scientist, but he's great with words, and he has such a knowledge of words. So when I'm saying, how do I pronounce this word? Then he gives me the history of the word, why we pronounce it that way. Because all of this science stuff.
I just make that stuff up and you swallow it.
I do. You're yeah, they say if you don't know what you're saying, just say it with confidence.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, John, I'm gonna say goodbye to everybody that's joined us tonight. I want to thank everybody for your super chat, your gift that you gave tonight, your donations. It really does mean a lot to me. I think I said thank you to all of them. Not sure if I said thank you to Ron. Where did he go? Here he is. Ron gave a donation of $10. So thank you, Ron. And Tom is a great donor of this live stream. He gave another $2, thanking us for a great show tonight. And again, I appreciate all of those. So we'll say good night. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And John, take care. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Y'all take care. Have a good night.